What's up, nerds? My name's Ryan. We're going to talk about Child's Play. Is it any good? Does it hold up to the original? Or is it in its own league? So Child's Play. Child's Play 2019 is the remake of the 1988 movie Child's Play. In this movie, we see Andy. He's a teenager in this one. He's kind of alone. He doesn't really have any friends, so his mum picks him up a new buddy doll. This buddy doll is highly advanced. It's a completely different doll than considering the one from the original film, like the Good Guys doll. It can control stuff, it can control your TV, it's connected to the Keslan database. Imagine Keslan being like Apple. It can do whatever it wants. It's connecting to your TV, it's connecting to mobile devices. It can do basically anything with these Keslan devices, turn up the heat, do whatever. But funnily enough, it was made for kids. That part of it doesn't really make much sense, but it doesn't really matter because this movie doesn't take itself very seriously. And that's what I think is really cool about it. The big difference between this movie and the original is that there's no serial killer connected. It hasn't got any of that voodoo vibe from the original film, and there's no Charles Lee Ray. The Buddy doll is just a crazed doll. It's kind of like the Krusty doll from the Treehouse of Horror series from Simpsons, where it's kind of just set to bad. It was taken over by a corrupted employee earlier on in the film, and his complete database was changed. He had different code entered into him, and he's a completely different toy in comparison to the rest of the Buddy system out there. And this leads to him essentially connecting with Andy, wanting him to be his best friend, and not letting anybody else come in the way of that. And if you do, you're gonna die because Buddy is gonna chop you up. It's a really cool concept because you get to see those moments where Andy and Chucky are actually getting along. Andy loves him. He actually considers him his best friend, which is kind of cool because once that dynamic switches and Chucky becomes a bit more of a crazed doll, he starts using that against him. Like, you love me. What are you talking about? We're best friends. I'm doing this all for you. And that is a really cool dynamic to have with a kid. It's not something I've seen before in a movie. It's it's happened with a lot of adult films, stuff like Fatal Attraction or even Swim Fan of the early 2000s, if you remember it. It's that kind of concept where it's this crazed best friend or love interest, whatever it might be, that's turned against you to try and get you back, but in the most macabre way. And speaking of macabre, this movie is kind of messed up. It has some really macabre stuff, and it's produced by the guys that made It, which you can tell it is because it's got that feeling of the It franchise, although the remake of It, and it's got those really cool sequences where kids are dealing with some messed up stuff. And the stuff in this, as I said, is really messed up. I don't want to go into it because it'll spoil it. But the horror elements of this movie isn't so much scary, it's more gruesome. I didn't really find myself getting too scared, but this movie isn't trying to be a typical suspenseful horror. It's meant to be a gross out, kind of like playful horror. It's a bit cheesy, but in a good way. And the cheese in it kind of took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting it. I, of course, came from the original film and the original, two sequels after that. I'm not a big fan of the past sequels past Chucky 3. So Bride of Chucky, Cult of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, Curse of Chucky. Not a big fan of them. They're okay, but it doesn't really feel like Child's Play when you think of the first three films and the Andy story arc. So going into it, I kind of expected a serious horror with this doll coming to life, but it's not. It's kind of taking the piss of the fact that there's this doll, killing people. And once you realize that, and that took me probably, I will say, to the second act of the film, there's a big moment that happens there that switches your mind. And for me, it was that moment that I said, this movie's taking the piss, it's having fun, and I got really into it after that. If you ask me what I thought of the movie of the first act, I wasn't enjoying it. I didn't understand the dynamic they were trying to produce. But once we got to the second act, I was all in. All my money was on board. After that moment, I started loving the movie. And I think that's the thing about it. It's kind of like a charming film, but a horror at the same time. It's got some really cool elements in it. The acting-wise, everybody's really good in this. Aubrey Plaza does really well as the mum, and Mark Hamill does really well as the voice of Buddy. In some senses, it's kind of creepy because he's not putting on that Joker voice, the one like, "Oh, Batman!" He's doing a bit more of a, "You are my buddy," that kind of voice. So you can tell it's Mark Hamill. It's not that kind of, macabre, scary kind of voice he's doing. He's doing this really kind of childlike Mark Hamill. it's a little bit terrifying in the movie the whole time. There's no real point where you find the Buddy doll cute. I mean, it's meant to have that cute element to it, I think, but Mark Hamill's voice over the top of it being creepy as hell, it's never really cute. It's kind of just like, I don't trust that thing. So Child's Play 2019, the remake, for me, it's a 2 thumbs up movie. It's really good. You should go into this movie expecting a little bit of cheese, but an enjoyable cheese. I really enjoyed it. I'm hoping they come back for a sequel. Some people are panning the movie, but I reckon you go out for yourself, you check it out. If you enjoyed the original Child's Play, just go into this one knowing that it's a complete remake. It's a different storyline. It's a different element to the movie. It's not the same Chucky good guy doll that you know from the original. It's a completely different film. And if you go in knowing that and expecting a little bit of cheese, you're going to have a lot of fun with the Child's Play remake. Anyways, my name's Ryan, and if you dug this video, we would love it if you'd subscribe to the channel. And if you like the video, make sure you give it a like, because that's going to really help us grow as a channel as a whole here on YouTube. So thank you again for checking out this video, and until next time, I'll catch you nerds at the movies.